Welcome back to Face the State. I'm Ariana Bennett. Thank you for staying with us. Well, I'm back with Jenny Breckus and Sienna Reed. We are talking about changes to the City of Reno's master plan, and we left off talking about transit. And I want to get this question in because I'm just generally interested in it. But something that we see in big cities that we don't have in Reno is a light rail, a commuter rail system. Is that something that you could ever see coming here, especially given what we've just talked about with traffic congestion?
I think it would be in the far off future a little bit, and here's why. Is typically communities don't move to light rail until they have a pretty good transit system. And like I said before, we're looking at more cuts to our transit system. We really are somewhat on the anemic side. What they run well, but they just are they just don't have quite the investment in it. The other thing is cities get there when they have good land use policies put in place, and we are still on that expansion mode, and it's been more developer driven rather than policy driven. Now, if the master plan can get in 5 years and we can be a little more tightened and button up and approving development in the outlying areas consistent with our ability to serve it, then I think we could start to move there in that direction. The other component, and it's out of the city's control, is the federal government's usually a big investor in transit and light rail and that sort of thing, with the exception of what's going on in California right now, which is, you know, big and controversial, but it's state money. And we just don't know where the feds are going on that. They seem to be retrenching on transportation investment. So we don't know. But, you know, I think that maybe 5-10 years is probably, we probably do have some good corridors to look at, Virginia Street, Kitsky, that sort of thing. And then it can help spur some of that higher density housing along there too.
Right. Now, I don't want to get caught up on this too much, but I'm just curious, why is the regional transportation, our current transportation system, getting cut?
Well, it's very interesting how we fund transportation in this region. We actually, for a region of less than $500,000, have a very good, solid, dedicated funding source. Some say it's like a curve, you know, without a stopgap, because we are funding ourselves on fuel tax fees at the pump that keep going up with inflation. But it's all being used for roads. It's not being used for transit, unfortunately. Transit is just a small little carve out of sales tax that goes to the RTC, and sales tax is the most volatile, and it's not escalating with inflation in the way that the fuel tax is. And until this region makes a decision that they want to dedicate fuel tax over to transit, we will continue with this rather underserving transit system. But I think that we're going to have to get and meet that decision point at some point, you know, soon. It's uncanny to me how we're talking about going in and redoing the spaghetti bowl. We've got all the population going out to the Tri-Center, and transit is basically a non-component of that discussion.
Right. And to build on that, I think there's uncertainty that around the role that autonomous vehicles will play in the future. That's something that could really assist transit in terms of reducing operating costs over time. And so I think, you know, while there is uncertainty, there's also excitement in terms of mobility. And so that's definitely something that the master plan sets up in terms of trying to be on the policy forefront of and adapting over time, whether it be to transit or to private automobiles.
Okay. Now, a few of the things that are mentioned in the master plan that I thought were interesting that we can just touch on really quickly. One of them is technology. It's an emphasis on wireless communication infrastructure. Is that more cell towers? And is that a problem in Reno? I wasn't aware.
Yeah, that's a great one that came in late. I give my colleague, Councilmember Dewar, credit for wanting to see that get into the plan, and I've actually been hearing from constituents twice in the last month about it, so maybe you can expand.
Yeah, we definitely had an addition of a policy related to advanced telecommunications. So really, you know, how can we speed up the rate of those telecommunications so that we can advance our technology industries? And so that could result in more cell towers if you're trying to, you know, really accommodate high-speed internet and in lots of different locations. But it also means trying to promote things like fiber. It also means looking ahead to how can you integrate wireless facilities maybe into development, so you don't see as many of the big towers. And so that's something that we'll be looking to do in the future in a bigger way.
Yeah, I mean, cities always have things, there's always things under the streets, and the pipes are usually a municipal service, but this technology and fiber, that's a private one, just like the electric lines. So it's really relying upon a very strong partnership with fiber providers to get that into the ground and throughout your community, and we just haven't gotten there yet.
Okay, quickly, because we don't have a ton of time, what about public safety? Is that addressed, police and fire, in the master plan?
It is, and it really is making sure that we're not stretching ourselves too thin. Those are the services that are geographic in boundary, a patrol unit or a response area for the fire stations, and it is about 67% of the city's general budget goes to public safety. And we want safe communities. We want to maintain our safety in our urban areas and make sure that we have new neighborhoods, if they're built out that they're not, you know, without service. And so that's where the city has their greatest struggle. It's all a financial issue, and it is addressed that we don't want to, you know, keep neighborhoods short, and we need a safe community.
So what's the timeline on being able to at least have all of our, for example, fire stations staffed up and full?
We have 2 stations right now that we have staffed, but they're at a minimum staffing level of 2. So they can run medicals, which are most of the calls, but they're not our 4-person standard, which we use for structure and wildland fire. So bringing on more development that it either has to, we have to expand those boundaries for those outlying stations, or we have to build new stations. And building new stations is not in the forecast because our revenues are only growing at about 2% last year, and we're barely making budget with, you know, those revenues.
Okay. All right. We've just got a couple minutes left, and this is a fun one. So historic preservation. I saw in the master plan something about putting in more protections for properties that are deemed as historically significant. So does that mean that, for example, houses like the old Victorian homes in the UNR Gateway District would have been protected since they were designated historical, or not? Is it something completely different?
We definitely took a deep dive and look at our historic preservation policies. One of the key things that the master plan is promoting is actually listing properties on the city's register of historic places as the way to really review exterior alterations to those buildings and review their potential demolitions. So right now we have about 15 properties on that list, so we really want to streamline the processes to get new properties on the list and make it easier to be on the list over time, so that property owners feel more comfortable listing those properties, and we do get, you know, more over time and those enhanced protections. So that is definitely something that we're looking to promote, and I think just of note, only one of the properties on UNR's kind of Center Street area was listed on the city's historic register.
Yeah, but they're all historic resources, but property rights are strong, even for a public institution like the university. It's a voluntary effort to preserve properties, and you just really hope that you have property owners and public institutions that see the value in those. Everything can't be saved, but you really have to think very hard about demolishing properties, particularly those that reach back so far into our history, because that's what's unique about your community.
Okay, well, we are just about out of time, but thank you both so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Okay, well, that is it for this episode of Face the State, but for more information or to see past episodes, you can just head to our website. That's ktvn.com. Thank you so much for being with us. We'll see you next week.